So the other day I was thinking to myself, which altcoins are going to be the top performers this cycle? And I asked myself, what components of an altcoin lead to positive price action? And I narrowed it down to a few criteria, which I believe the altcoins which hit this criteria are going to be the strongest performers this cycle. And this trend has already been proven true because many of these alts are the ones that have bounced the most off the lows and are likely to continue to exhibiting positive strength. This is the checklist. I am currently prioritizing altcoins, and a lot of these altcoins I have the highest conviction in the market, that are fully diluted, so that don't have crazy supply, that have teams that are still active and have been building hard throughout the bear market on their products, coins that have a strong narrative, and have big exchange listings. I believe altcoins that tick off these criteria are in a very good position to see tremendous upside this cycle. And in today's video, I have put together a spreadsheet of 10 of these altcoins with the reason why I'm bullish on them listed as well. Now, I just want to say, of course, there are many altcoins which can also perform really well that don't fit these categories. For example, there are a lot of new meme coins which may not necessarily have been building hard throughout the bear market because they're new. And there are some great coins that don't have big exchange listings that I'm still longing. And there are some great coins that aren't fully diluted that I'm still longing. So this isn't a criteria that you have to live by. I just believe the coins that tick these boxes can fly very quickly and reprice very quickly to the upside, because these are the general components, in my opinion, that do lead to the biggest comebacks in the altcoin market. So today's video is going to focus on 10 alts, which I think have very strong comeback potential that were around last cycle. So we're not discussing the new shiny coins. We're talking about older coins that have their supply fully flushed into the market. I believe that's going to be a big narrative heading into Q4 and beyond. That's what investors are now looking at. People are very cognizant of FDV, so that's definitely one criteria I'm looking at. I'm also looking at products which have been really developed and fleshed out during the bear, maybe when people weren't paying as much attention whilst prices were down, and are now ready to either launch new products or simply now is the right time for those products to get attention due to a certain narrative that is brewing. So before we get into that list, let's give a quick update on the crypto market. Bitcoin is behaving a little bit better today than it was a few days ago. If you're watching this video slightly later, this TA may not be relevant, but the general consensus here is that Bitcoin has made a higher high. It looks to be solidifying a base here around 60K. This entire move for Bitcoin isn't something that should be foreign to viewers, because 7 days ago last week, I did talk about the fact that although Bitcoin was creating a higher high, it was likely going to come back down and deviate below the previous base. And that is exactly what happened. We had a higher high and we went down and we swept below the previous base. Now looks like Bitcoin wants to make a reversal, but in terms of short-term price action, you obviously do have to be wary because there still is geopolitical tensions out there. The market is still looking relatively weak, but it is good to see that some alts did start to recover today. But that shouldn't really matter too much to you, because today's video is a longer-term video focusing on, on major dips, what are some of the coins that are most interesting to long? And I do believe the 10 alts I'm going to speak about today fit a nice criteria in terms of alts that can perform really well when the market does pick up and Bitcoin eventually does break all-time high, which I am anticipating at some point this cycle. Just a quick update on Total 3, that's the altcoin index. What's really interesting right now is that we're starting to create a new upwards regression channel within the previous downwards regression channel. So you can see here we have been in an altcoin bear market, so to speak, with lower highs and lower lows since March. However, we are starting to see the signs of a trend reversal, as you can see here, with higher lows and higher highs starting to form within this mini range. Obviously, if this range continues, we would eventually see a higher high like this, and altcoins eventually making their way back to this level at the 800 billion mark. There's a lot to play out there, so definitely keep your eyes on this trend. But if this is a trend that is starting to form, it could mean that we are forming a new base which intersects with this horizontal here, and we will be looking to target new highs, at least in terms of local highs on altcoins potentially in the coming months. So this is just something to keep your eye on. I know a lot of people are super crazy bearish right now, but look, alts can sweep this level and they can even sweep under. We've seen many deviations below before eventual reclaims of key supports. This can happen, but overall, we do want the trend to be upwards here, and there's nothing to suggest that that thesis is necessarily invalidated. We just want to keep our eye on the charts here. Now let's get on to the altcoin list. There are 10 alts I'm discussing today. No, this isn't a comprehensive portfolio video. I might do that at a future date. This is simply a video which has the altcoins which I believe best fit this criteria. There were a few alts which I really like, but because they're technically not fully diluted, they didn't tick the boxes for this video and thus did not make the video. There were also some alts which I really like, but they didn't have the biggest exchange listings. I'm talking Bybit, OKX, Binance, etc. So I couldn't pick them in this video. You know, there might be a meme coin that more so trades on a DEX, etc. But we will focus on the alts that do fit this criteria, and these are the ones that I think can fly quite quickly in this market. And I think all of the alts that I speak about today are probably going to be solid bets for this cycle, and they definitely have a strong thesis behind them. There is one alt in particular which I excluded today because it didn't fit all of these criteria, but I think is going to be one of the best performers this cycle that I am going to be sharing in my Discord within the next 24 hours. So if you are interested in the alpha, I'm cooking a big RWA play. I've been doing lots of research into the RWA sector, and I believe I've found one. It's below $100 million market cap. That could be the next Ondo/Mantra. Discord members are going to get the early access to that alpha in the next 24 hours. So if you're not part of the Mars High Club, there's a link in the description below to join. We'll be capping at 1,000 members, which we may hit very soon at this rate. So if you want to make sure to get the early alpha, make sure you are in that Discord, and that is one of the plays that I'm very excited to share very, very soon. And something we're also doing in the Discord to make sure that you don't miss any alpha is every single day we post a Mars High Club daily report where the top alpha and analysis from myself and the rest of the analysts are shared in a nice bite-sized PDF for you. This one isn't fully bite-sized because there wasn't AMA, so there was a question and answer section here where you can read through. But pretty much every single day, the main charts and the main narratives and calls, etc., that you need to be aware of from the Discord, because there's a lot going on in the Discord, are condensed into this nice PDF that you get every single day. So that's just something else that I wanted to remind MHC and non-MHC members alike, that you can find that in the Discord, and it should be of great use to you if you are serious about succeeding in this market. Without further ado, let's get into the altcoin list. Now, the first one I'll be discussing that I believe does tick all of the boxes that I have been speaking about is Phantom. I don't think I need to go too much into depth about my Phantom analysis because I've spoken about it a lot on the videos here, but it's been one of my best performers in my portfolio over the last few months. From a TA perspective, it does, in my opinion, need to hold above the 65-cent level. That is a major zone that I'm looking at, but strong chance it ends up reclaiming, considering it is now in a new uptrend, as you can see on the daily chart here, following this orange line after it did have its breakout at 46 cents. I do think Phantom's going to push towards $1. I think the Sonic narrative is super strong. If you don't know what's happening with Phantom, they're basically rebranding to Sonic in light of the Sonic mainnet launching. It's their new chain. They're moving away from their previous chain, and this is basically what people have been waiting for the last few years, really. It's the evolution of FVM now moving into Sonic, which is a high throughput EVM layer 1. The stats that I've seen on Sonic seem absolutely crazy, and there's a lot of hype, of course, surrounding Sonic and a potential airdrop. And this is just one that I think performs well this cycle. And it definitely, when we talk about this criteria, fits and ticks a lot of these boxes, considering it's mostly fully diluted. The team is active and building hard throughout the bear, 100%. This Phantom is pretty much the quintessential project when it comes to a team building throughout the bear, because they were working on Sonic throughout the entire bear market. Of course, it has all the big exchange listings like Binance, and it has a strong narrative. L1s are a very strong narrative this cycle. Solana's obviously been a top performer recently. We've had things like Sui start to run, and Phantom is right behind in terms of L1s with mindshare. Just keep in mind this criteria here, the has a strong narrative criteria. It's not just referring to a sector like AI or L1s, although it can. A project can also have a strong narrative. So in and of itself, I believe Phantom Sonic is a strong narrative So there are sub-narratives, obviously, broader sectors like layer ones, and then individual catalysts for a protocol, which can create a narrative, a story, or a trend which people gravitate towards. It's very rare that an altcoin in this market, due to the fact it's an attention economy, rallies, unless there's some sort of manipulation. If it doesn't have some sort of compelling reason why people buy in, or some sort of compelling reason why people are talking about it, and individual altcoin catalysts, or an altcoin being a proxy for a category that's super hot, are definitely one of the major proponents of positive price action in crypto. So that is the first one, which is Phantom. Now moving on to the next one, which is RUNE. RUNE is another token which is mostly fully diluted. Now, you will see a slight discrepancy because some tokens have a tiny bit of supply. So I did basically categorize a token that's fully diluted as having like sub 10% dilution to come. So there may be like a few $1 million worth of tokens to come, but I mean, that's inconsequential. We're looking mostly at altcoins here, which are avoiding the trap of having, let's say, like a 5 to 10x dilution ratio, like a lot of the newer projects, which, and I'll probably have to talk about this in another video, isn't necessarily inherently a bad thing. It's just defeating the purpose of this video. I'm talking about tokens in this video that have flushed out all of their supply and don't have as many supply overheads as new tokens, which may very well have better tech and a strong narrative, but have more overhead supply pressure. Once again, not inherently bad. I own a lot of these projects. There are projects I'm bullish on that have a lot of supply yet to come in the market, but that's not what today's video is for. So let's talk about RUNE. RUNE is one of these protocols which I think is very reflexive in the market. What does that mean? In a bull run, RUNE performs really well. In bearish market conditions, RUNE tends to perform quite badly. And this is due to the reflexive nature that the RUNE asset possesses due to how the omnipool is optimized. APRs and rates on the platform tend to go up a lot as Ethereum and Bitcoin increase in price, as the APRs increase, as the spread between RUNE and Bitcoin and Ethereum increases as well. That requires more RUNE to be staked in order to pair one-to-one with ETH and Bitcoin in terms of value in the pools, which obviously increases the APR to incentivize this. So a long-winded way of saying RUNE is an asset which has a positive flywheel, and in a positive market, you can see that expansion happen quite rapidly. This is exactly what we saw back in March earlier in the year, from its lows to the peak of a 10x, which is absolutely insane. If the lows take us to another 10x, which I think is entirely possible in this market, then RUNE could potentially be a $30 asset once again. Actually, did it ever hit $30? It was 21, but obviously more dilutions happened since then. So I think it could clear the highs and go much higher. Those are kind of your upside targets on RUNE if things perform really well. But of course, that is a bullish estimate and a bullish scenario. You don't need it to go to $20 to $30 to make good money. I mean, in this market, you might be happy with a 2, 3, 4x, and I think RUNE definitely has the capability to do that, considering from its current level to the all-time highs just this year, it still is a 2x in price, actually 2.5x in price. So RUNE is definitely one that I think ticks the boxes because there is continuously new partnerships and things being built on 4chain. It's fully diluted. I think maybe the one knock on it is it doesn't have the strongest narrative, but it still is in the market right now one of the only protocols that actually facilitates Bitcoin to ETH swapping on chain and facilitates the permissionless swapping with liquidity of major assets on chain without having to utilize a centralized counterparty. So it does have a unique narrative in the market. Maybe it's not as sexy as maybe, the AI narrative, but I mean, DeFi, I think at some point also sees a resurgence. We've seen coins like AAVE starting to perform well recently. A lot of them have just been super beaten down, and I think there is room for repricing on a lot of these assets, which does lead me to the next altcoin here, which is also from the DeFi category, which I just mentioned, and that is AAVE. It's a DeFi blue chip. It's a revenue powerhouse. It's pretty much your main proxy bet on a DeFi resurgence if you do think that'll happen. It's also a proxy bet for institutional DeFi adoption, as it's the main money market in crypto. It's trusted by bigger players, and it's pretty much the quintessential bet that you would look at making alongside things like Compound and Maker if you were an institution making an investment into the future of DeFi. If you do look at the revenue data here, you can see that it is extremely profitable, with total annualized revenue in US dollars of $260 million. If you go into Token Terminal, you can also observe that it still has the lion's share of revenue compared to a variety of other protocols, which are also money markets. You've got Compound, Venus, Moonwell, Morpho. AAVE pretty much takes the cake and is the biggest and will likely continue to be the biggest. You can see Matthew Sigel here saying that Bernstein adds AAVE to model portfolio, reflecting more bullish outlook for DeFi as money market rates fall, removing SNX and GMX. Notes DeFi users up 4x since Jan 23, so DeFi has actually been growing since the bear market. Given Ethereum lagging, we believe it may be time to turn our attention back to DeFi and ETH. I certainly don't want to fade having some DeFi bets in my portfolio for this cycle. I certainly will not fade holding Ethereum this cycle, even though it's performed badly. I certainly see why maybe you'd choose not to. If you maybe have lesser of a capital base, you might go for things like Solana. That's totally valid. I still hold some Ethereum because I still do believe it's one of the safer assets in crypto and does have upside. And these things tend to ebb and flow. Like sentiment tends to shift from bullish to bearish, not just sector-wide, but also in terms of individual altcoins. There was a lot of Solana FUD, which took Solana to $118 just a couple of months ago after it ran up to all-time highs. So this stuff happens in crypto, and I do want some exposure to the ETH/DeFi ecosystem. Now let's move on to the next altcoin number 4 in today's video, and that is NIR Protocol. NIR has been building a lot throughout the bear, so it definitely ticks that criteria. It's fully diluted, and yes, it does have a very strong narrative, being, in my opinion, what could be considered as the premier AI layer 1 in crypto. Now, obviously, it's not full AI. It has AI integration. It has AI use cases and applications in mind. There are blockchains or networks like Tau, which are maybe more AI native, but I don't think that is the sticking point as to what matters. I think people are looking for the prevailing AI L1. They're looking for bets that can become strong AI proxies, especially in light of Tau that's run really hard. And I do believe NIR is a candidate to fill this role. Even if it doesn't necessarily fill the role as a top AI proxy, it also has the benefit of coming underneath the L1 narrative, launching last cycle, getting a lot of dilution out with a growing ecosystem. That also ticks boxes for me in terms of seeing potential upside. We've seen coins like Sui run recently in the layer 1 sphere, and NIR is one of those that I think at some point could go on a strong run. Don't know exactly when, but it's one that I'm accumulating because I want some exposure. And like some of the other coins that I've spoken about today so far, it still is a 2x away from its yearly highs. So there is upside there. It's also in an uptrend and has reclaimed a major high time frame level, which I do like as a potential bid zone between the 440 and the 450 region from ATA perspective. You can also see they've been partnering with a bunch of AI protocols. They recently partnered with NILLION, which allows 750 projects in the NIR ecosystem to have access to blind compute. There are many different other partnerships that they're implementing as well. And Ilya, the founder, of course, has been deep into the AI space, and that was something that was mentioned in the initial white paper as well. So I do like NIR, and I want to hold it in my portfolio for that reason. Going on to the next protocol, which also is in the AI sphere, and that is RWeave. RWeave is a protocol which is fully diluted. They recently launched their AO supercomputer, which is built to deploy AI models at scale. As you can see in front of you, AO lets you plug into any virtual machine you like, build fully on-chain dApps with EVM, SVM, WASM, and more. They started as a decentralized file storage solution. They still do offer that on the Weave, but obviously the supercomputer is bolstering the capabilities of the RWeave network. I think it has a great ecosystem. It has a strong brand. It's fully diluted. It has a lot of strong holders and kind of a religion behind it. And I do think DePin is one of the verticals in crypto with some of the most upside this cycle. There are many DePin projects that I'm investing into and are interested in. RWeave does have that crossover into AI, which maybe makes it slightly more compelling from a narrative perspective, although DePin and AI often do go hand in hand. But yeah, RWeave is definitely one that fits the bill here when we do talk about coins that tick all those boxes, and it makes the number 5 slot in this video for good reason. Let's move on to slot number 6, another AI protocol, and it's PEPE. FET is now the culmination of Ocean, AGIX, and FET. So they're all going to become the ASI token. And that's basically going to act as one of the top AI proxies in the space. You can see it is in an uptrend, although it has had a retrace. I'll draw it in for you there after its initial breakout at the 120 level. From a technical perspective, it is interesting, especially if it retraces into this pocket here. Might be something I look at longing. But from a fundamental perspective, I think you can expect this one to act as a leader or an AI proxy, and a lot of people are probably going to trade it around that. Also, it is going to get the new chart. Once the rebrand happens, the new chart could potentially be a bullish thing because, I don't know, it just resets things psychologically and enables price discovery. So that's also something to keep in mind just from a psychological perspective. And the last AI protocol that does make this list, which comes in at slot number 7, is Render, which is obviously one of the AI sector leaders, has a strong community. It's an AI DePin proxy. Now, let me say something about Render. I don't think it's as strong of a play as it was earlier in the year. Why? Because you have genuine competitors like Aethia, IONET, and many other DePin compute solutions launching that are, arguably better, or at least adding to the competition of the space. And what this does is it leads to a bit of dilution, which is why the Render chart is looking weak, or at least weaker than it was. However, I still do think when it comes to ticking the boxes of being a fully diluted altcoin from a strong narrative that's been building throughout the bear, Render is a project which does fit the bill, considering, as you can see in front of you, all the partnerships that they have managed to accrue, all the real world companies that are using Render, and it does have that whole Apple narrative of Apple consistently featuring / using Render, which can generate these hype cycles. So although maybe it's not the clear AI leader anymore, it's still one that I do want exposure to because it does have a strong narrative behind it. It's more diluted than a lot of its counterparts, although I'm just noticing here, I don't know if the API has updated on my spreadsheet, but the circulating market cap is a little bit behind that 10% rule I had earlier. But I guess in terms of the DePin space, since a lot of the other ones are newer, you'll find the ratios are even more insane. One thing I will say about DePin tokenomics, which is slightly different from like more predatory VC L1 tokenomics, for example, is the fact that if you do have node operators, oftentimes you will have a period of time, it can be 4 to 6, 8 years, where you're still paying out staking rewards to operators. So naturally, your vesting is going to be longer and a little bit more of a slow drip than the stark unlocks that we might find on something like, I don't know, let's say a Celestia or a Sui, etc. So you also have to look at not just FDV, you have to look at where are the tokens going. Are they going to community? Are they going to VCs? Community is obviously a lot better. And how are they unlocking? Are they unlocking slowly? Are they dumping in the market all at once? That is something that you also have to factor in. Let's move on to the final 3 now. Injective is the next one I want to talk about because this is an L1 that has actually been quite weak since its massive peak of $53 in March. In fact, from current prices to the peak this year, that would take us up 166%. This is another L1 that's fully diluted that I do think at some point is going to come back. It was one of the first altcoins from 2021 to make new highs so far this year. I think it has a relatively cheap valuation relative to other L1s at a $1.9 billion circulating market cap. It is branded as the blockchain for financial dApps as well, and does have quite a big ecosystem. So INJ is one that I'm probably going to add relatively soon. You can see here it is testing a major support level and is starting to look like it wants to form a new uptrend. So this could be a decent bet for your portfolios, and that's why I wanted to mention it today. And it does tick the boxes that we are discussing here. Let's move on, and you can see some of the stats here. Over 988 million on-chain users, 61 million staked. The staking ratio is also a good thing because it means there's less supply. They are foraying into the RWA space. They're the 3rd ranked chain in terms of number of tokenized RWAs as well. Let's move on to the penultimate pick for today's video, number 9. And by the way, this video is not in any order. I've kind of ordered it in terms of sector. You'll see, I've kind of lumped the AI tokens together, but it's not exactly in order. The penultimate one is Beam. This is, in my opinion, one of the leading gaming coins. Super is another one, of course, that I'm very interested in, but Beam ticked the boxes slightly better when it comes to, the limitations that I put on this video, although Super, for all intents and purposes, could be put in this video, and I probably, if I had to pick, prefer Super as a play over Beam. But for this video, I've picked Beam, and it's still one of my top 2 gaming protocols on the liquid market right now. There is some pretty cool upcoming gaming protocols, but in terms of the ones that tick the boxes that are live right now, I do like Beam because it is a solid gaming infrastructure play. I think infrastructure is the safer way to approach gaming at this point versus betting on individual games. It has a significant treasury, as you can see in front of you, that can be deployed, and they are deploying capital into a lot of venture investments. They're also holding some cash, liquid crypto assets. It's like basically a gaming crypto fund, and you can invest in their governance token, and obviously they can use these funds. They've got $34 million in cash to do what they want in the ecosystem. So I think they are in a strong position. They are owners of Aethia tokens and nodes. They're holding a lot of assets in Aethia, Sophon as well, which is an upcoming chain, which I'm looking forward to. Many others as well that they own, equity tokens, etc. They're basically like buying, they're like an index fund of the gaming industry at the moment. So I do like Beam, and I think there's enough underlying fundamentals there to justify a place in your portfolio. And then the final pick, this might be a bit of a weird one, but it does fit the bill in terms of a token that's survived from last cycle to this cycle. Now, since it's not a utility token, I guess you can't really say that they've been building throughout the bear, but it is a token that has survived throughout the bear, whilst many other meme coins have died. And it's one where I think unit bias once again could come into play. So it's at 11 cents right now. Of course, Doge to $1 is like the big narrative, and that's what took it up pretty much to $1. I mean, 73 cents, not quite last cycle, but it has been consolidating in this range. And it is a play that I think at some point could go on a run. Even earlier in this year, it went to 22 cents. So it's like a 2 and a bit X off that level. I don't know. I've just got a feeling here that at some point Doge will come back. And if you want a larger cap meme coin holding that's slightly maybe safer than some of the newer ones and has less baggage, because the supply distributions of some of the newer meme coins maybe aren't as clear. We kind of know where Doge sits. We know the big exchanges have done DD, and we know it's like, you know, the leading meme coin still. I do think this remains a decent one to have some exposure to. It might not be the most exciting one. Like, I prefer, for example, PEPE and WIF in terms of upside, but it is an interesting play that I'm seeing a few people starting to fade or not really speak about or talk about in terms of the conversation. And let me just tell you, Doge is definitely in the conversation in terms of potential top altcoin performers for this cycle. Maybe not percentage-wise, but definitely in terms of market cap gain due to its size. I think it can still, on a relative basis, perform well. So that is the list. Phantom, RUNE, AAVE, NIA, AR, FET, Render, INJ, Beam, Doge. Most of them tick the boxes that I discussed. There might be a couple exceptions, but generally I've put together the list with the criteria that I discussed in mind. I think it's a cool set of criteria that I think makes refining this list down quite a novel one, an interesting one, because I do see a lot of focus on new shiny altcoins and new shiny memes, etc. But taking a look at some of the alts that were around from last cycle that have still been building, that have now flushed out their supply into the market and are primed for a potential leg to the upside, that is a pretty tantalizing proposition. And many of these altcoins, if not all of these altcoins, I want to hold in my portfolio. I don't hold all of them right now. Like, I can run through and give you a quick update. Phantom and RUNE I hold on building positions. AAVE I have a very small position. I want to get some more exposure. NIA I hold on, I'm building a position. RUNE I'm holding, I'm building a position. FET and Render I don't hold that much of. I hold a little bit, but I de-risked at one point during May once the market started to collapse, and I haven't bought back in. I'm waiting and seeing on those. Injective's similar. I have some staked, but I don't have as big of a position there. I recently did take a position in Beams. That's one that I've built. And Doge, I'm still waiting to position in. So not all of these I own right now, and myself as well. I'm building a portfolio. I'm using major dips in order to lower my cost basis on these coins. And I'm also using TA in conjunction with my fundamental analysis to make sure I get good entries with good risk management. Hope you did enjoy this video. Remember, the protocol that I am eyeing from the RWA space as the potential next Ondo/Mantra play will be posted in my Discord within the next 24 hours first. If you do want the early alpha, you can head over there, click the link in the description, come and be a part of the community and get not just that alpha, but all of the other amazing education and analysis that we do have in the group from myself and the other analysts. Hope you have a lovely rest of your day. I'll see you later. Peace out.